Hey everybody, here's Bo, and we're headed out to the garden on this very sunny and warm Friday afternoon. So we have had another week of high 90-degree weather. We've hit the hundreds a couple times, and it's definitely showing in the plants right now, and also why I'm doing this video at night instead of in the morning. So some cool things, nothing like totally has burnt to a crisp, but it's definitely difficult to get out and get some of the yard work done. And it is definitely the dog days of summer. It's also one of the reasons I'm glad I don't do this for a living anymore, as those summers are very, very tough on you after a while. This was the Iris Nata that had the beautiful white blossoms. I'm going to be pruning this back over the next week. And I wanted to definitely point out to you as well this beautiful sandback jasmine. And again, that's sometimes called Arabian jasmine. Look at this one over here, just covered in blooms, and it has an incredible fragrance to it as well. Very sweet smelling, and also when you have 3 of them, you actually can smell the flower away from the blossoms. There's Bo there, told you she'd join us. Here is Just Joey, one of the better apricot roses. One thing that has done really well is this Cupia, this false Aurelia, or false heather, and it's held up to the heat really well. I've been using that as a border plant. It is perennial, and it has, in this case, white flowers. There's another variety that's more of the pink blossom, that's more the common type, but I thought the white one would look good over here. You can definitely see all the growth. I need to cut that back to actually see the bricks again. I kind of did that across the way just the other night. There's a little bit of a view there. But with the heat, with the extra water, long days, you're getting a lot of growth, both from grass and weeds. The apricot tree holding up, doing really, really well. And that's one of the reasons I planted it here as well with the southern exposure. I wanted a little bit extra protection from the sun, so it's not just radiating off of this wall here. Back in the corner, you can kind of see some foxglove still in bloom, which is kind of nice. And it is underneath this really cool lollipop shaped bay laurel. So one of the interesting things with the bay laurel as well, especially in this heat, the new growth is really affected by the heat. It will wilt even though it's well watered, and if you keep it cut back to kind of the older growth, and you can kind of see the darker green there, that's the older, more mature growth, it takes the heat a lot better than like the newer growth up here, which is always going to be lighter in color. So other than that, let's take a look over here. You can kind of see that I pruned the bearded iris last week. So this is just after the first week. You can see that some of the bearded iris, like that, kind of putting its middle finger up to us, that's where the new growth will begin, kind of in the center. And in a couple of weeks, or maybe a month or so, you won't even be able to tell that they were pruned. But it's good to get all that old growth off of the iris, especially in the summer, and make sure to dispose of it. I had mentioned last week that white flies are really prevalent on bearded iris leaves. This is Leonotis. You can kind of see the blossoms there, how large they are. Beautiful orange flower, and they bloom almost all summer long. The Leonotis is also the plant that I transplanted from way over there on the far side of the yard to over here, and wasn't quite sure if it was going to make it. I didn't think I got enough roots, but I was wrong, because there's definitely a huge plant that's growing, and I'm really happy that it did make it. Let's see what else is going on. The lilies, they're just about done now. Let me switch over here. We've got one or two more blossoms still to go. This was really one of my favorite of the double pinks. There are some pansies still. Kind of see them fighting a little bit with the weeds. And also Tiffany there. I was able to get in and do some pruning a little bit more in the back here behind this touch of class rose, which is right next to the crabapple. The crabapple is holding up extremely well. I didn't think it would hold up this well, but it is. Some of the lavender doing well. Some of the scaviola doing well. A lot of the plants here just need to be cut back, but also that extra amount of foliage acts as really good insulation during the heat waves. So you don't want to expose parts of the plant that have not been exposed to the sun, and then all of a sudden they're burning, and you kind of ruin a really cool plant. Down below here, the fuchsia, and you can kind of see in the back here I've got a foxglove or two. Got the lamb's ears as well, doing really nicely, still holding up. And over here, the Tabernet Montana, no bloom, but the plant is surviving, and that's all I can ask for right now. Again, the dahlias doing extremely well in the heat, which is fantastic. We've got the thyme finished blooming. Couple blooms on the dianthus or carnation. Another bloom opened on the daylily there. Beautiful bicolor. A few apples left on the tree. They're beginning to split open. It's the end of the season for them, so they'll be pulled down shortly. The Corsican mint, thriving. One of the scaviola not thriving, but the other two are, which is kind of weird. So I don't know what happened to that one, if it didn't get enough water or something, I'm not sure. Over here, the hemlock is really doing great, and it is amazing how well the conifers that we normally associate with the East Coast hold up really well here in our summers. Let's see. Oh, we also had one more bloom of Alina over here. So I'll zoom into that. So hopefully in the next 30 days, it'll start to cool down. We'll get a new crop of roses coming up. This area is doing okay. The dogwood tree, a little bit of wilting because of the heat, but other than that, it's holding up really great. The lemon verbena here, the mimulus or monkey flower throwing off a bloom. This was a fig I took from cuttings from the side fig, and that is a clerodendron back there. I'm hoping it'll come into bloom. The quince, which I did not plant all winter long, still doing great. And look at the jatropha. That's just such a cool tropical plant. And of course the peony, and the new one planted this year. In the back we've got a dwarf lilac, and looking forward to planting that somewhere over here in the side perennial bed. Sorry for that flash of sun. It is about 5:30, 6 o'clock here on the West Coast. So we're getting that late afternoon sun. I still have everything tarped over here. Some of it's holding up pretty good. The Japanese maple is doing surprisingly well. Silver dragon liriope. And this is an area that has not been planted in years and years and years. Remember, it's underneath this liquid amber that was just cut down a couple of months ago. The Chiananthus tree, that is holding up, and no, not even any visible signs of sunburn. I am watering the heck out of it, and I just want to get that established super quick. So we'll start to get a canopy here that will be protecting these plants. And I don't know if there's a whole lot to tell you about over here. Just trying to keep everything watered. And of course, with everything watered, you can take a look at that fern over here. It's just going crazy, and the ivy from the wall is coming in as well. So I need to get back in here and also kind of thin up that pittosporum, which is starting to look like a small tree. So I need to get that cleaned up. This is a really wonderful ornamental grass called carex, and it's kind of blending well with the fern, honestly. And it blends well with the daylily. I'll probably separate this daylily this fall because it's getting a little bit too large for the area. But it's such a beautiful color that I will definitely find more spaces for it. That is mostly about it. The magnolia, I did want to show you one section of the magnolia. I did prune it back, cut out all the water growth. The suckers come, not really suckers, but I call it water growth. That'll really help thin out the plant and maintain its shape. You can kind of see, I had mentioned, it normally will start burning right at the tips of the leaves as we get into mid-August. So we do have a few of these that are starting. But other than that, that is really about it. You can kind of see just the tips of the leaves there. But it'll go as much as like halfway. And again, it's just the physiology of the plant, nothing that's gonna, no disease or anything that's gonna hurt it. It's just what the plant does. And I think that is basically it. The mandevilla under some shade, but it's also beginning to show some signs of hot weather stress. So with that, that is this week in the garden. Bo and I will see you next week with another video.